Welcome back to Tracing the Sky. In today's episode, we're going to be looking at the sun and how it moves over the course of a single day. And we'll be really trying hard to describe it in as much detail as we can. Now, one quick housekeeping note. Each of these videos is going to be between 5 to 10 minutes long. Every so often we'll go a little bit over, but I really want to try and make this something you can sneak into a daily routine. Think of it as your daily dose of astronomy. Now, one challenge I have for you as we approach these videos, and especially today's observations. I want you to try and set aside any prior knowledge you have about the solar system or the Earth or the shape of the Earth, things like that. I want you to try and approach this with fresh eyes, as if you were, thousands of years ago, making these observations for the first time, trying to discover things from scratch. Now, I'll guide you along the way, but I really want to try and describe what we see as it is. And over time, we'll start to learn how things aren't always what they appear. So with that, let's dive into our first observations. And we're going to start with the sun. So let's hop over to my computer here. Okay, let's follow along and see what I can observe. So after 1 hour, I can see that the sun is rising from the left-hand side of my screen. We'll just call that east. And then let's see what happens after another hour. Okay, interesting. The sun moved from left to right, definitely. And what's also really standing out to me is the distance between the sun and the horizon got quite a bit bigger, right? It was just touching the horizon in that first hour, but now the distance has increased quite a bit. Okay, that's super interesting. If I go another hour, okay, it's still getting higher. It didn't jump quite as much, but it's still going left to right and getting higher in the sky. Okay, that's super interesting. And now, again, an hour forward, it's doing a similar thing, but okay, I think I'm seeing a pattern here. It's getting higher, but not by as much as it does the previous hour. So the rate of increase is decreasing. Okay, starting to level off here. Doesn't seem to be getting much higher. And okay, the next hour, I think it may have gotten a little bit lower. Let's see if it is. Okay, it's definitely getting lower. The distance between the sun and the horizon is subtly starting to decrease. And if we keep going, I can definitely say, it looks like it's decreasing by quite a bit now. And it looks like the amount it's decreasing is increasing, right? It's getting lower faster. And now it looks like it's setting in the west. Okay, so that's a day in the life of the sun from my perspective. We saw it rise in the east and set in the west. It seemed to get higher and then level off and then start to get lower. Now, if I imagine tracing that path just with my finger, for example, what would I see? Well, I might draw something that looks roughly like this. Okay. Not bad with my mouse. Okay, so that's roughly the path that the sun took. And imagine a little bit more of a well-rounded path. Well, what is this shape? How would you describe this shape? Do you know the name for this shape? Well, this is an arc. So we can describe the path that the sun's taking as an arc from east to west. And so on an arc, you follow this path and it gets higher to a certain point and then it gets lower. Now, if you can imagine, what happens if you extended this arc? What if the sun kept going, right? Because we've already seen a couple days now and the sun rose pretty much where it started, at least from what we could see so far. So it's not like the sun is, starting in the south and going to the north or starting in the west the next day. It seems to be coming back around to where it started. And if you were to imagine projecting the path it's following, what shape would it make? What would kind of the completion be? Well, I think you can probably see where I'm going. If I were to imagine it following and continuing this path, and imagine drawing something a little bit better than I am with my mouse, you would imagine that it would probably be moving in this circular motion. So to kind of finish our description, if you observe the sun over a few days, you start to see that over the course of a single day, it's traveling in an arc. But then you can imagine projecting it, and because you see it travel in an arc the second day, starting at what seems to be the same spot, it looks like the sun might be traveling in a circle around the Earth. And again, just a reminder, put aside any knowledge that you have about what the solar system does or how the sun and the Earth actually move. If we just look at what we see from where I'm sitting, it looks a lot like the sun is going around the Earth. Okay, so we have our first observations. So far, it looks like the sun is traveling around the Earth in a circle. What we see is it rising in the east and setting in the west in an arc, and repeating that over the course of a very narrow sample of a few days. Now, I want to try and sneak in bonuses for you, tips on how you can maybe get more out of this series, especially if you're working with your kiddos or students. So if you do have the ability, I would definitely recommend, finding a spot that you can go to every hour or two and making these observations of the sun. Obviously, don't look directly at the sun, but make these observations if you can outside. It's a great way to get the kids out, and it's going to be a really fun activity. Do it over the course of a few days, and then kind of gather all their observations and see if they can summarize it in the way that we have in this video. Okay, before we leave, I want to leave you with one question. If you were to repeat this exercise day after day for a few weeks and maybe even months, would the sun's path be the same or would it change? Now, I'm not going to answer that for you just yet, but I want to keep that in the back of your mind as we move forward. Now, we're going to take a brief break from the sun in the next video to start to look at the stars and the moon. I want you to see what those two bodies are doing over the course of a night, so that we can get a really well-rounded picture of the daily motion you would see when you go out on any given day and night and look up at the sky. So, in the next video, we'll turn our attention to the stars. I hope to see you there.